Okay, 200 students estimate the capacity of a cup and the results are shown in the frequency table. We are first asked to calculate an estimate of the mean. Now, to do mean calculations from a frequency table, we have to do 3 steps, and this is summarized by the term MAD. We have to multiply the x's with the frequencies, add all those results together, and divide by the total frequency, which we either find by adding these together, or if they're nice and they tell us, might be up here in the question. If we're dealing with grouped frequencies, we first of all have to calculate the midpoints of each interval. Now most of the time these are pretty obvious. So this over here is 50, halfway between 0 and 100, 125 over here, 175 over here, 225 over here, but this one we might have to stop and think about a little bit. Now if you're not sure what the midpoint's going to be, then a quick method to do it is to add together the endpoints and divide by 2. So if we do 250 plus 400, getting 650 divided by 2, that'll give me 325. Essentially, we're working out the mean of these two values. So now I would multiply the 50 with the 20, the 125 with the 55, the 175 with the 66, the 225 with the 35, and the 325 with the 24. That's the multiplication. If I were to add all those together, that would be the next step, and then finally I'd divide by 200. If we do all of that, we get a mean of 175.5. Now it's an estimate of the mean because it's a grouped frequency tables and we are guessing that 50 and 125 and so on are representative of those values. That's why it's an estimate. Okay, so once again, once I've worked out my midpoints, I multiply all of these together, I add all those results up, and I divide by the total frequency, which is 200 in this case, and I would end up with 175.5. So now I have to complete the histogram. Now histograms are calculated from frequency density. And frequency density is my frequency divided by the class width. Okay, so going back up to my frequency table over here, I'm going to clear off some of these scribbles that I made before, because none of this is all that important at the moment. I'll just do my 175.5 over here, and of course it should have had units, so I'll say milliliters now. So this class width over here is 100, so my frequency density is 20 divided by 100, which is 0.2. Over here I would have to do 55 divided by the class width, which is 50. So 55 divided by 50 is getting me 1.1. Over here it's 66 divided by 50, which is getting me 1.32. 35 divided by 50 gets me 0.7. And then finally the last one has a class width of 150, and that's 24 divided by 150, which gets me 0.16. So those are the heights of all of my bars on my histogram. So the first category goes from 0 to 100 and has a height of 0.2. Look carefully at your scale to make sure you're getting this right. Every 2 little squares is worth 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, 0.5. So my first bar that I would draw looks like this. Now they've drawn the next one for me. Let's double check that it makes sense. 100 to 150. Yeah, that's what they've done. Let me just shrink this a little bit so we can see everything. There we go. So 100 to 150 on the bottom, and I reckon it should go up to 1.1, which is what they've done over there. That's 1.1, the top of their bar. So that makes sense. Let's keep on going. The next one goes from 150 to 200, so it's going to start and finish here. And it needs a height of 1.32. Well, there's 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, and a bit. Okay, so 1.32, maybe somewhere up here. So I would draw this bar, obviously with a ruler, something like this. Like that. Okay? Now the 35 group over here goes from 200 to 250. So I'll count my squares carefully, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 in the middle there. And it's got a height of 0.7. So there's 0.5, 0.6, 0.7. So that is where that next bar is going to go. Like that. And then finally my last group goes from 250 to 400, so all the way to the end, with a height of 0.16. Well, there's 0.1, there's 0.15, so just a shade above 0.15. Something along those lines, again carefully with a ruler in your case, and there's my histogram. Okay, and that's that question. So here's a question where they're giving me a histogram, and in this question it's going to be important to remember, as it is for many of these questions, that area equals frequency in a histogram. This is a result of how we calculate frequency density. That's a very important fact when you're dealing with histogram questions. So now it wants me to complete the frequency table. Okay? In other words, it wants me to get from frequency density to frequency, and I do that by looking at the areas of my bars. So let's just double check that for the one they've given me. They reckon that the first category has a frequency of 50. Well, that makes sense from a point of view of area, because it has a width of 10 and a height of 5, and 5 times 10 is the area of the rectangle, and that's 50. So that confirms their value. Let's have a look at the next bar. It has a width of 10 and it has a height of 8. So 10 times 8 is of course 80, and that's going to be the frequency associated with that bar. The next one has a width of 5 and has a height of 6.246, 6.6 along here. Again, I'm paying very close attention to how this scale works. So I've got to do 5 times 6.6, which is going to give me 33 for the next frequency. Now they've done the next one for me, so I'm going to move straight ahead. The final bar is 20 on the bottom, and it goes up to, reading very carefully, just 1. 20 times 1 is 20. Now to check that I've done this correctly, I could check that all my frequencies here add up to 200. 50 plus 80 plus 20, well that all makes 150. And then these two together make another 50, so that adds up to 200, so I'm pretty sure I got that right. Now for an estimate of the mean, we have to do exactly what we did with the first question. We've got to multiply, add those results up, and then I've got to divide by the total frequency, which is 200. Once again, I have to start by finding midpoints. Between 0 and 10 it's 5, 10 to 20 is 15, 20 to 25 is 22.5, 27.5 for the next one, and finally 40 over here. So 5 times 50, 15 times 80, 22.5 times 33, 27.5 times 17, 40 times 20, add those up and divide by 200. Now I'm going to do that quickly on my calculator so we know what the right answer is, and then we can move on. Okay, so that's all coming out as 17.3. 17.3 grams, make sure to include your units, and that's an estimate for the mean mass. Once again, it's an estimate because we are using midpoints of intervals, we don't know the values exactly. Okay, and I shall do more answers on the next video.